start recording. So we will have this recording today up there for you at proaging.com, but all of our recordings are there. You can view our Career Center, provider search, and see full copies of the digital or print edition of Sourcebook at the bottom of the page. But with that, let's get started with today's discussion. I tell you, I look forward to these discussions with elder law attorneys, aging life care managers, senior move managers. I've been in this business for 32 years, but I swear every time we do one of these, I learn something new that I didn't know. So I'd love to bring on our panel members now, Kim Battaglia and Cheryl Jones. Well, Cheryl, I'm really glad that you're here today because it's one last name that I got right. I
No
am
problem, Steve.
so notorious. And like I looked at Kim's last name and I was like, oh no, here it goes again. I'm gonna mispronounce it. But Battaglia that's pretty good one. Well, I'm really charged up to have the two of you on. This is new for us, and so we've been playing around with all different formats. If any of you in the audience have tuned in to our Meet the Elder Law Attorneys, we've done elder law attorneys from different firms. A few weeks ago, we did an elder law attorney and an aging life care manager, and we've done a couple where we're showcasing two attorneys in the same practice. And I'm really excited to have the two of you because I remember back 32 years ago and meeting with David Pessin with PK Law, and it was much smaller practice back then, but still focused on elder law. So we're going to learn a little bit more about PK Law, but before we do that, let's get to know the two of you a little bit better. Kim, I'll start with you. Tell us a little bit about your background and what led you into elder law.
Well, I started out in law school and I was doing estate planning, corporate work, litigation. We joined the firm, and one day I was actually studying for the bar when they said, Kim, would you like to join the elder law department? And I said, sure. And I loved it. I always wanted to be a prosecutor, but I just found this so much more fulfilling to help families. I actually began teaching at the law school, the elder law course. I do estate planning, trust administration, probate, guardianship, special needs, but a bulk of my practice is the Medicaid assistance. And I always tell people, I have relate to families because I've walked the journey. I've had it in my own family.
So now, was your first law firm out of law school PK Law, or did you work for another practice?
I actually worked with a sole practitioner, and he had written a book, and he came back to the firm and he said, we're joining that law firm. And I said, okay.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's great. One of the things I was going to mention that the journey that elder law attorneys take oftentimes is not as early in their practice as you. I mean, wouldn't it be great if these young law students were thinking about elder law as a profession? But I think most of them are thinking about law and order and being a prosecutor. And so it's really kind of neat to see somebody who pretty much you started your career out and you've been doing this your whole practice. So that
for over 20 years now.
Wow. No, that's great. Well, Cheryl, tell us a little bit about your journey. And now you're going to tell me that you walked across the stage and right into an elder law practice after I
No, I won't. So actually, I was a paralegal for a really long time before I went to law school. I was one of the oldest people in my law school class, and proof that you can go to law school at 40 and be successful. So when I left law school, I worked with a small boutique firm that did high net worth planning, Steve. So it was an interesting niche. And then I joined PK Law because I wanted to expand my practice and focus more on ordinary people because high net worth planning for people with $500,000, or excuse me, not $500,000, but $500 million, or
Yeah, I was
you know,
gonna say.
$100 million, that's a whole different realm. And I wanted to practice in something that touched more people and was more client interactive. And so I've been here at the firm now for almost 10 years. And my practice, you know, more or less mirrors Kim, although I have a separate sort of segue that I focus on a little more than she does. She does a little more Medicaid, and I do a lot of guardianship work, which is part of the elder law world. And, you know, I'll be happy to chat about it a little later, but guardianships tend to be one of those areas of the law that are crisis planning, right? It's something that we do because there's a mistake or somebody hasn't had an opportunity to plan, or there's a little bit of tension. So I get to do some of that. But, you know, I got into this because I wanted to be with people more free and not push papers around all the
Yeah.
time. And to go to your point about younger people going into elder law at the outset, you know, I think what makes a good elder law attorney is someone with some life experience. So, like Kim said, she's walked the journey with her own family. I think as you mature, the reason so many people wind up moving into elder law is because we've seen more, we've done more, we understand more with parents or spouses who are facing those traumas. It's great for young people to move into this field, and we all want them to do it. But I think, you know, the elder law attorneys that most people are going to get most experience from are the ones who've been around a little bit longer.
No, I totally agree. I think, but you know, it's one of the things that we're constantly trying to do is get young people to think about working with older adults. You know, I
right.
mean, it's sort of
right.
have it on your radar, you know,
Yep.
but no, I love it. Now, before we kind of dive into you guys sort of sharing some tips, and also I'm going to throw out to the audience, remind you guys, you can ask these folks anything and everything, and we love hearing your stories, challenges, what have you. So feel free to type in any questions. But before we kind of dive into that aspect of our discussion, let's pull back the curtains a little bit and about on your law firm, PK Law, which, you know, again, like I said, I remember, you know, the practice 32 years ago, but it's quite a significant practice. How many, how large is the practice now? And also something that I'd love for you to touch on that we haven't talked about on the, on these discussions is like, what is the role of a paralegal? What are some of the other people that are in your elder law practice that the clients are going to work with, that the providers are going to work with? And I love your story of starting out as a paralegal. I bet you that gives you a whole new perspective on being an attorney too, Cheryl.
It's different. So PK Law has 50 attorneys. It fluctuates up and down, but we have offices in Columbia, Towson, and Bel Air. We have a whole bunch of legal assistants and paralegals as well. And we pretty much cover soup to nuts what most people would need for an attorney. So we cover a broad range, not just elder law, but we have litigation attorneys, we have business attorneys. And I like to tell clients, and I know Kim does too, call us first, right? We're sort of your first stop as a lawyer. Never go through the phone book. We always encourage clients and families, call someone you know first, right? Because that's what networking is all about. It's about finding people that you like, that other people recommend. As far as the staff and the use of our elder law paralegals and case managers, I'm going to let Kim touch on that because she has some amazing elder law case managers in our group. And so I'll let her talk on that.
We have great paralegals. Basically, what I tell people is they know just as much as we do, except they did not go to law school. And my one paralegal, and I know Cheryl will attest to this, she always tells people, don't call them, call me. She will answer the phone at one. She was in Europe and she was taking clients' phone calls in Europe. I mean, we basically take calls constantly. And I always tell people, you know, if you email me at 2:00 in the morning, don't be surprised if we respond to you at 2:00 in the morning. You know, if we're up, we're on it. You know, this is something that needs our attention, whether it's myself or Cheryl or the paralegals, but they are outstanding. They've walked the journey as well with their parents and their family members. So,
Well, and I also think from crossing that line, and Kim worked as a legal assistant also before she went to law school,
I
but
went to law school late.
yeah, but I think that some people are more comfortable speaking with someone other than the attorney, right? So like it can be intimidating to talk to an attorney. It can be intimidating to sit in a client meeting that where we're talking about something as sophisticated as a Medicaid spend down and liquidating IRA assets and buying an annuity and not want to admit that you're not entirely sure what's going on. And so as a practice group, we make sure that our paralegals know how to talk to people, and they really are the first line of communication for so many of our clients. They don't want to call the attorney. First, we cost more and the paralegals cost less, and second, because despite our best efforts, people are nervous asking questions of their attorney.
Mhm.
And so, you know, paralegals and elder law case managers are a great resource in this field. Because we are a bigger law firm, we have them and we make them available to clients.
And
So,
I've never even heard the term elder law case manager. Tell me a little bit about that role and what those folks do.
Kim?
So basically, they are paralegals, but when we give them the case, they own it. They own the case. They are with the client. They will go to your house. I mean, LaDonna, she'll go to the client's house. I mean, we're talking about elderly people. And typically what happens is it's always the person who was not taking care of all the finances, who was the one at home. So she'll go to their house. She'll help them go through their paperwork. She helps them photocopy it. You know, we'll meet them outside the firm. I mean, basically she owns the case. She manages it.
Great, great. All right. Well, this has been really cool. We've never sort of got that behind the curtain of a large practice before. Let's kind of dive into what are some of the things that you guys are seeing out there, sort of tips, tricks. I always like to hear sort of, challenging situations that have occurred and how they could have been prevented by somebody consulting with an elder law attorney. But I'll just let you guys kind of stream of consciousness here, and as questions come in, I'll just jump in with them.
All right. So I think one of the themes that Kim and I will both touch on for most of this call, this is going to be planning ahead and managing the crisis before the 11th hour, right? So that's kind of what we hope everyone would do. As an elder law attorney, the hope is that everybody gets all their planning in place and we can minimize the disruption and the chaos and the worry and the panic when the bad things happen, you know, the health situation or the fall or the entry into a nursing home. So I'm going to talk a little bit about guardianships and what those are and why they're important. And for those of you who have Netflix, if you haven't already seen it, there is a fantastic movie called I Care a Lot. Steve, have you seen it?
I'm embarrassed to say that I
Oh,
haven't,
okay.
but I'm going to add the link into chat here.
Okay, so it is fiction, okay? However, it is a very frighteningly dark, funny picture about the guardianship process. And to be fair, there's a tremendous amount of truth in it, okay? Because guardianship is a legal proceeding that happens when someone doesn't have plans in place for in the event of their illness or disability. Okay. And so if you have a chance, I encourage you to watch the movie. No, I get no royalty rights or anything from it, but it's a really good sort of picture of what could happen at its worst extremes. And so we talk about guardianship because it's a legal proceeding to have someone appointed take over your person and your property. This is a court appointed individual, could be a family member, could be a stranger. who's now going to make decisions about where you live, what medications you get, whether or not you get life-sustaining treatment, and also decisions about whether or not your house is sold, what happens to the proceeds, what facility you'll get paid for. And if you don't have planning in place, a guardianship can be very extreme. All right. Go ahead, Steve.
Okay, I did see this movie.
You
Okay.
did.
Oh, it's horrible. Now, does I know it's fiction, but does that actually exist out there? Are there practitioners that are potentially doing things like that? That one firm was doing
So,
in that?
so I hope that there aren't practitioners out there, but I will tell you this. If you are in a nursing home and there is no family available to care for you or willing to care for you, right? Because we live in a fractured society now, and that nursing home needs access to your funds, they will seek a guardianship on your behalf, and they will ask the court to appoint an attorney, a stranger, to
Mhm.
handle your affairs for you. And that attorney will be responsible for making all of the decisions about your finances. So I think the movie sort of takes it to a dramatic and
Yeah,
dark
but
place, which is fun, but it's terrifying. It's a terrifying situation. And it's one that, as elder law attorneys, Kim and I would both tell you right out of the gate, it's easily avoidable.
Mhm.
So it's about planning. It's about getting estate planning documents in place for yourself and for your parents or the older people in your lives, right?
yeah, something that is it's a term that I hadn't heard until about a month ago, but it seems like on almost every one of our calls recently, somebody has referenced solo agers. Okay. Like
Mhm.
my mom is a solo ager, or my next door neighbor is a solo ager. And you can see where that group is extremely susceptible to what you're referring to. If you don't have family that's alive, or you're not connected with your family, they could very well be susceptible to some guardianship issues.
That's exactly right. And with elder law and estate planning and trust administration and all of these things, those solo agers really are vulnerable. First, they're vulnerable to all the things that seniors are anyway, right? Elder fraud and abuse and being manipulated by caregivers. But then ultimately, if they do lose capacity or they have memory issues or they need to be transitioned and there's no one there to help, they're relying on the system, and the system isn't perfect. I mean, it's just not perfect. And so as attorneys, Kim and I, our objective is to try to encourage family members, caregivers, those of you on this call who are in the community, in the field with us, to encourage individuals to think about and plan ahead. If you don't have a family, you can still choose the people you trust, right? You can still make an educated decision as opposed to an utter stranger coming in. So, Kim, it
Yeah.
looks like you're jumping in. Go ahead.
I mean, one of the things that I've seen, and I just got a phone call earlier today, was, once again, we don't have documents in place and we're hoping that dad, gets better. But beyond that, dad was extremely private. And now I have a daughter coming down who doesn't even reside in the state of Maryland, and she's basically going through all of dad's paperwork trying to piece it together. So, besides the estate planning document, number one, the power of attorney, if we could get our clients to just share a little bit more of their assets, and I understand they are private and they are the parent and they're supposed to be the caregiver and the one with all the strength, but it will make it a lot easier for us to assist.
Um, Actually, a question just came in, Kim, when you brought up power of attorney, is that, and this is again one that we've been getting every time we have these discussions. Can you kind of share with us, let's say that you're a solo ager
Mhm.
and you don't necessarily have a big network, and you don't have children who I think are normally who people think would be power of attorney. Are there other people that you can assign to that role, and maybe just give us a brief overview of what power of attorney is.
Yeah,
Well,
Cheryl,
I know I forgot. I can't ask an attorney to say anything
Brief.
briefly, you know.
Cheryl and I get this question a lot with the soul agers, you know, and the number one question is I always get, Kim, can you do it? And a lot of times I hesitate. I want to meet the person. I just don't want to sign up to be somebody's power of attorney blindly. I want them to be able to meet me, trust me. You know, I do it on rare occasions, and I think Cheryl feels the same way. But beyond that, you know, one of the other things that we do is when we prepare a power of attorney for someone, you know, especially if I'm not the power of attorney, we do everything in triplicate form so that at the end of the day, we always retain one, because now I have a child going through the house looking for a power of attorney when is all they have to do is call us. And, you know, we always retain an original. But Cheryl, how do you feel about the soul agers?
So, Steve, it's absolutely a problem. I mean, there's no doubt. And so, what do we typically tell them? Throw the net wide. Okay. If there's no immediate family, look for friends. What's the risk to that? Typically, our friends or our peers. So, if I'm 85 and need assistance, it's possible my friend is also 85 and unable to help at that point. Look down a generation, right? If your best friend is also your age, does he or she have a child who you've known for a period of time who might be willing to step in? Ask, please ask whomever it is, because ultimately, what's a power of attorney? A financial power of attorney is a legal document that you put in place while you're competent that specifies who will step in to manage your financial affairs for you. In Maryland, it has to be in writing, it has to be signed by you, witnessed by two adults, and notarized. Okay. And so a financial power of attorney lets someone step into your shoes and manage your affairs. So it should be someone that you trust. And when you don't have immediate family, like I said, cast the net wide, look for friends, look for children of friends, look for neighbors, look for, sometimes we say clergy or synagogues or people in your religious community that you've been a part of for a while. But there's no doubt that it's a problem. Financial advisors typically can't serve in that role because they have responsibilities as a fiduciary, as a financial advisor, and they can't step in. Your attorney is towards the bottom of the pile just because we're a professional relationship, not a personal one, right? So we really want someone who you know and trust. Typically, we don't encourage an officer or a bank because that can be very cumbersome to appoint someone like that in a financial, power of attorney capacity. But it's a problem. It's a problem for seniors, and so it's important if you are a solo ager to start planning ahead. Think about these things now, because if you wait until you need them, it may be too late, right? It's all about organizing your affairs, making a list of your assets and how to access them. Where are your life insurance policies? Check the beneficiaries. Who's in the title on your bank accounts? How do you own your home? Have you looked at the deed? Do you know? Getting all of those things organized, getting all of your paperwork organized, and having a plan going forward. It really does minimize things. And I'll let Kim talk about this, but that cost, that scurry at the crisis is really what drives a lot of the expense and worry.
Mhm. Right, because if we don't know what your assets are, we're spending a tremendous amount of time basically investigating, looking through tax returns, looking through, bank statements, and, we go back 5 years. So we're looking at the bank statements to see what's coming in to find another asset. And then it just basically trickles that way, looking for assets constantly. Life insurance premiums, we'll see premiums coming in. We got to figure out the values of these life insurance policies. So it's a tremendous amount of legwork investigating, what their assets are.
Yeah, and on this front, Joe put in to chat that there's a recent case where an attorney took $1.8 million from a vulnerable senior. I found it, and I posted it in chat there. I think it's knowing who you're turning over this very important role with is very important. And I think the important thing here with with this story is not to disparage the legal practice, but it's in every profession there are people that are going to take advantage of older adults, and
Right.
you know if anything, this speaks to working with an elder law practice on these matters versus maybe a general practitioner that is not in this field. Because if you're in this field, uh, you can't afford to have something like that on your reputation either.
Right.
So I know I'm babbling here, but
No, and that's okay. And that's something, Steve, that, we do try to encourage clients, especially because Kim and I are both out speaking in the community a lot. And that is, elder law planning is a specialized field, right? It definitely isn't something, especially in Medicaid planning and getting someone qualified for medical assistance in a nursing home. It's not something that the guy who handled your divorce should probably be doing, right? The guy who got you off on the last traffic ticket probably isn't going to understand the nuances of a Medicaid application and protecting assets in the face of $14,000 a month at a nursing home. So it really is an area where we would always encourage anyone seek out someone in this field.
Mhm.
And I know that it's overwhelming for clients. I talked to somebody the other day who said, I didn't even know there was such a thing as an elder law attorney,
Yeah,
right?
no, and that's one of the reasons we're doing these.
That's right.
Um, Tracy has a really good question here. And she says, there is a couple that is 94 years old with no children. They just moved into an assisted living. They do not have a will, power of attorney, etc. The wife has dementia. So what is the process and how long does it take?
Kim, you want to jump in or you want me to answer?
We both can answer. So, the first thing I would do is I would love to meet with the couple. Let's see if she's got lucid moments. Let's see if she's able to choose someone to make financial decisions for her. The second step I do is I look to see if the assets are held jointly with herself and her husband, if I can't get a power of attorney in place. But for assisted living, we're not going to be applying for medical assistance. So basically, our hope is to let's get good documents in place and let's figure out where all the assets are. So in the event, because she's got dementia, in the event she were to decline and transition to long-term care, we're ready to move forward with the medical assistance application.
Now, on that, Kim, let's say that and Tracy, you can jump in with any more details if you like, but let's say the wife has dementia, but the husband is still cognitively 100% there.
Mhm.
Does that make the situation a little bit better because one member of the family can sign these documents for both of them, or how does that work?
I'm going to jump in on this one. If wife doesn't have capacity to sign legal documents at that point, now we're circling around into a guardianship because husband has no ability to sign legal documents on her behalf
Ooh,
just because they're
okay.
married. He's being a husband doesn't make him able to stand in her shoes and transact business in her name. So
Mm,
if there are assets in her name alone, they're frozen. If she can't manage them, he cannot. Now, that being said, we still want documents in place for husband because we need somebody at 94. We need somebody able to step into his shoes, right? You're at the 11th hour now. And but for wife, if there are assets in her name alone, now you've got to make a determination about whether or not a guardianship is appropriate. Do we need to
okay.
ask the court to appoint a guardian for her?
Oh, and this is
depending
great.
Yeah,
Tracy has
depending on
some,
the asset.
Tracy has some follow-up here. She
Okay.
says, the husband is mentally and has capacity, using the legal term. They are all joint accounts. So what happens then? So,
Kim?
If they're all joint accounts, I would
Yeah.
make sure good documents are in place, and I would leave everything alone.
okay, so this is not as a challenging a situation. It's still, I mean, they should have had this done earlier,
Mhm,
but the fact that it's joint accounts,
mhm.
one of the family members has capacity, you guys, this can be a much quicker transaction than
mean,
the
You
others.
could be a little bit more aggressive and start moving the assets solely into his name. But if there's no children, no one else involved, I would probably leave the assets alone if they're held
So-
jointly.
So when you say aggressive, meaning this
Aggressive planning.
would, yeah, which would give the wife the opportunity to potentially apply for Medicaid or something like that earlier? Is that the case?
Correct.
Okay.
I mean, if there was children involved,
Okay. Well, wow. There, Tracy, Tracy Sklitsky, who I think is with Oasis Senior Advisors. She says they need to sell their home for funds for the assisted living, and both of their names are on the title. What should they be doing there? So it sounds like most of their assets are in the home, and
if it's
and
just
she
the
is
one asset, I personally would probably petition the court for a specific transaction to have the house sold.
Which is a lesser legal standard than a full-blown guardianship.
Mhm.
So in Maryland, if you can identify a specific transaction or transactions for which you need assistance, the court will typically grant that because it's much less than a full-blown guardianship, appointing a guardian who has to report to the court. And so we do that all the time. Family will come in and say, oof, the house is in mom's name alone. She can't do anything. Dad wants to sell it. He needs the money to pay for her care. Rather than go through the whole hassle of a guardianship, we might just file a pleading with the court and ask the court to authorize dad to sell the house and dispose of the funds, in a consistent fashion with mom's.
yeah.
But for Tracy, the key to that situation is moving. The longer you wait, the shorter and smaller the window gets, right? Especially at their ages. At 94, if mom's dementia typically doesn't get better. So if her dementia to worsen, she may still have lucid moments now that would allow her to execute documents. So the sooner they move on that, which of course is really hard, it's like getting a horse to move when they don't want to sometimes, right?
Mhm.
We all know that people dig in their heels and don't want to think about this stuff. It's
Yeah. And
scary.
I'm glad you brought up the lucid moments, because another question came in and it says, so you're saying that the attorney can watch for lucid moments of capacity and during those moments get documents produced and written. Is that how it works? Or maybe elaborate on that a little bit.
Maryland law recognizes that a diagnosis of an illness doesn't necessarily mean that you don't have capacity to execute documents. Okay. So as attorneys, we have the ability to determine whether or not you have legal capacity to execute documents. Okay. Do you understand the nature of what you're signing, who you are, the natural objects of your bounty? So the people you know and care about. Do you have a sense of your property? Do you understand what these documents are going to do? I don't need you to be able to recite the Gettysburg Address to prove to me that you can execute documents, but the law does allow us to make a determination as to your capacity to execute legal documents. And a physician doesn't make that analysis. So listen, we all have seen family members who are really good in the morning or really good in the afternoons or just have good days. Both of us have gone to homes, to nursing facilities, to assisted livings, because mom's always good in the afternoon until mom's not good that afternoon, right? and then we go, this isn't a good day. Maybe we'll try
Um,
again tomorrow.
No, that's great. And Tracy has some more follow-up. And I have to say, Tracy, thank you so much for sharing this scenario. That's one of the main reasons I like doing these is that we've got this real world problem that we're tackling, and we've not shared any details. Like, there's no confidence that has been breached here. This is a real life scenario. So Tracy, she tacks on that they do have funds to sort of start paying for assisted living, but eventually the home is something they're going to want to get those assets. But she also says something: when are the attorneys available? I have talked to an elder law attorney and they aren't available for 2 weeks. Kind of curious, like, how are the schedules in your firm? And then she also talks about, like, again, you don't need to get in the weeds on this, but this always comes up, is how much does all this stuff cost? So maybe using this as a scenario, can you sort of give us an idea of if this family called you today, what could you see happening, how fast, and how much would they need to be thinking about in their budget?
So just to give you an idea, it was my last day at the office. It was about 8 o'clock at night, and I got a phone call that said, Kim, and it was a Thursday. Kim, I have an elder care client for you. Can you make the phone call? Sure. And I was supposed to be off. Okay, I was supposed to be off, but I still met with that client. I mean, that's how we are. We care a lot. It's, these are
Don't
things.
say that. That's the name of that movie.
Yeah, you can't say that anymore.
Whoops. No, but we get it. We understand. So what if I miss 2 hours of my vacation? What's important is that this is what I do, and people need us. So we're
Well,
there for 'em.
and also I think with your firm being a larger firm, if you can't handle it, you've got other attorneys, as we said, they could start talking to the paralegal to get the things
That's right.
prepared. Okay, so
That's exactly right, Steve. We cross over. We have 5 partners in this group. We all cross over and do this and fill in as needed, so that in a crisis, we're not going to leave a family hanging because
Yeah.
one of us is out of the office. And our elder law managers will screen calls, talk to families, get them on the calendar. They can listen to the problem and then reach out to figure out who needs to be involved immediately.
Great.
So,
And all right, well, Tracy's ready to call you. She's like, can I get their contact info? I know that let's see. Well, I'll make sure to email that to you, Tracy, but also I think we can drop that into chat there for everybody. Okay, that's great. And then in terms of cost in general, I like somebody can call you guys to have an initial consultation, and then you give them a proposal on here's the cost range, correct? Because even this scenario, you probably need to ask a bunch more questions to really dive into how much it's going to cost a family to make the proper documentation.
yeah, so I think we like to tell clients every case runs on its own facts, right? It depends on so many variables. Do they have any documents in place at all? How far buried are their documents? Are they hoarders and no one has seen any of this paperwork in 5 years and the house isn't accessible? Are there capacity issues? Are there family members involved, right? Because let's be fair, we all know that death and money changes everyone. And if we're talking about protecting mom and dad's assets, Kim and I are talking about protecting them from mom and dad. But there might be family members who are way more concerned about protecting their future inheritances, right? So elder law attorneys have to walk that line, recognizing who our clients are, and then figure out what needs to be done. Typically, work is done on an hourly basis. If it's for a Medicaid spend down and asset protection, if it's estate planning document, typically done on a flat fee basis. Kim, would you agree that probably most estate planning documents can be put in place for somewhere between, I don't know, $1,500 and $3,500, give or take?
Sometimes a little lower, so, yeah.
Yeah,
They-
it depends on the situation. A Medicaid case, if someone's actually trying to protect assets because there's a pending nursing home application, Kim, ballpark, what do you think? What
For
do you
Medicaid,
typically tell them? Yeah, for a Medicaid spend down.
usually I tell them 1 month of nursing home care.
Right.
Mhm.
It's a detailed process. There's thousands of pages worth of bank statements and histories to review. There's probably assets that need to be liquidated and retitled and moved around. Families sometimes help a lot, sometimes help a little. Listen, if you have a loved one in a nursing home, we want you to focus on getting them situated and making sure they're comfortable and finding the right place for them and not chasing down bank statements for the last 5 years. That creates a level of anxiety that no one needs during that time. That's what we are for. That's what our case managers do. I mean, that they step into those shoes for you so that you can focus on what you need to worry about.
Yeah, unfortunately, the attention to detail it's tremendous because when we apply for medical assistance, if a CD is missed, that could be devastating to a Medicaid application. We have to find every single asset and disclose it.
Again, I'm assuming another real value to being a part of a large practice is the resources that you can draw in that aren't billing at the partner
Attorney
rate,
fees. Yep.
that can make that happen.
Right.
Let's see, somebody just made a comment when we were talking about planning. It said early planning and organizing is so important in these major important lessons. Thank you so much. Let's see. Another question says, are you saying you can help advise and guide people and individuals about the natural objects of your bounty and property? This is so interesting and important, amazing. Attorneys can make decisions about capacity to answer questions and approve and provide signatures for necessary important documents, lessons, and important information. Is that correct? I mean, they're sort of restating, I think, what they understood you say regarding assessing bounty, property, and capacity.
I think, Steve, Kim and I aren't just attorneys, we're counselors. We're guidance for the family. We're there to help them in a broad range. It's not just providing legal advice, it's talking them through. Listen, just because little Steve, your son, is the oldest, doesn't mean he should be your financial power of attorney.
Mhm.
He's not responsible with money, or he's in the middle of a big divorce, or whatever it is. Sorry, Steve, I should have used another name, but you know what I'm saying.
She's heard that before. No, I'm teasing.
But, part of the role of an elder law attorney is to literally guide this person and the family that surrounds them through this process. And the process isn't just the discrete legal tasks, it's also the navigating all the new stuff. We see this in our industry, all the folks on the call, you, Steve, Kim, and I, we see this all the time. It's what we do for a living. But this may be your only set of parents that you've ever had to do this for, right? This may be the spouse that you've been married to for 65 years and you're lost. And so that's where using an elder law attorney can help a family identify what legacy they want to leave to their kids. Do they want to include their grandchildren? Do they want to choose a person outside of the family to help in a crisis? Yes. So to answer the sort of rephrasing of that question, we do those things for our clients. We do them with our clients and their families that they want to be involved. And by the way, if you get 5 elder law attorneys in a room, you'll get 10 different plans. So don't think that there's always a black and white path. Sometimes clients think that there's one way to go and they need to know what it is. And sometimes we just look at them and say, here are your options. We can tell you what the plans are, but ultimately you get to decide how you want to go forward with them, right?
Yeah.
And Kim's
Um,
always telling her clients, you're here to be educated, right? I'm going to tell you what your options are.
Mhm.
We're teaching you what you need to do. And then you get to pick.
Mhm. Each client's
actually,
goals are different, they have different goals.
Right?
yeah, and actually, this is a common theme that has come up is uh, because a lot of times the intimidating thing about talking about lawyers is, we read and we get a few legal bills and it's like, oh, I can't, talk to this person, I get charged and what have you. And one of the things that all the attorneys and other professionals have said is that we listen to you, we figure out what your budget, where you're comfortable. And one of the ways that families can save money is by the attorney teaching them, and now they go and do it. If you guys have to go through a bunch of shoe boxes, that's going to cost the client a lot. But if the
Right.
client can get you all that documentation, poof, we've reduced the legal bill. This is a great question from Catherine Naro. Some folks think that they can download a will off the internet and that it works. I understand this tends to be invalid. Could you speak to that?
Go for it, Cheryl.
So what I tell clients typically is the money that they save not getting the will prepared properly, their families will spend after they die, fixing the problems that are created. There is a free healthcare directive on the Maryland Attorney General website. If clients don't want to pay for an attorney, that is better than nothing. Okay. There is a statutory power of attorney available if you do some digging in the state of Maryland. It's not ideal for Medicaid planning, so it's not all encompassing. If you want to use it for a very specific purpose, you need to be very careful. Is it better than nothing? Sometimes. But if you're using it for Medicaid planning, it's not going to work down the road. But wills, you know, we've seen a lot of wills get printed off the internet. We've seen people take someone else's will and copy it and just change the names because that must have worked, right? The truth of the matter is, if you do it wrong, it can have dire consequences. If the will's not valid, you now have an intestacy situation. So by way of example, if I'm married and have children die, people have this assumption that everything will go to their spouse. Wrong. If my will's not valid for some reason, and I'm treated as if I died without a will, my spouse will get a portion and my children will get a portion.
Hmm.
Well, what if this is my second spouse and he
Hmm.
doesn't get along with my children from my first marriage?
Hmm.
And the only asset I have is the family home. And now my second spouse owns a half and my children from my first marriage own a half. That's a catastrophe waiting to happen.
Mhm.
And so, doing a willing correctly is potentially leaving a Pandora's box. That being said, is any will better than none? I don't know. I think the most important thing is to understand what would happen if you died without a will. What would happen? A will is a relatively inexpensive way to ensure that what you want to happen actually happens.
Mhm.
So, in the grand scheme of things, we're always going to encourage you to see a lawyer as opposed to do it yourself, right?
I
But
love it.
Advanced Healthcare Directive, I just saw that you posted the link. Perfect.
Yeah.
That is free and better than nothing by all means. Okay.
Yeah. Now we've got 2 questions in the queue. We're getting close to the end of the hour here. I always throw that out because we'll get a few more questions that come in. Okay. Catherine says, thank you, Cheryl, for that response. Let's see. Ken Silverstein from Alfred House says, do you recommend a different individual to serve as the medical power of attorney and the financial power of attorney, or should it be one person that is handling both of those? Any thoughts on that one?
I typically recommend the person that you choose is someone you trust. It may be that financially, I may choose my daughter because she understands my finances and, she can go to the bank for me and there's different things she can do. However, she may not be honor my wishes when it comes to a healthcare directive. And she may want to keep me around because she's not ready to let me go. Therefore, I may choose my other daughter in that instance to make my healthcare decisions for me, only because she'll honor my choices.
Now, Deb Merrimer from Buckley's for Seniors says, what about the 5 wishes document? Would you recommend this in addition to estate planning documents? And I'll find the link for the 5 wishes documents. But
I like the 5 wishes, Steve. I think it's a nice, touchy-feely, warm and fuzzy version of an advanced healthcare directive. And listen, at the end of the day, anything that gets people thinking about their wishes, expressing them, communicating to them, to the people who are going to make decisions for them, we're all for that. Because at the end of the day, if I'm lying in a bed and can't communicate, I want those people that I've named to hear my voice. And if 5 wishes helps me communicate to them the things that are important to me about my person, and bring the dog visit, and these are the procedures that I want, and these are the ones I don't want, yay. So I think it does cost. I think there's a charge for the document, but it is a valid legal document if properly executed, and it can help. It can certainly help people explore those things. Death and dying and aging are taboo topics. So
Right.
anything that makes these conversations easier are bonus things. And 5 wishes is one of those documents.
That's great. Oh, and Tracy, again, Tracy, I've been telling people I wish I could give out gold stars. Tracy, you won the gold star today with the most thought-provoking discussion questions. But Tracy says, what about those legal plans that you can purchase and get a will, like LegalZoom or things like that? I mean, obviously you guys are with a law firm and you're going to be like, hey, but I mean, in terms of, doing nothing, do it yourself, and going to one of these paid subscription services, what are your thoughts on that?
Now, Kim is shaking her head no. Again, here's the thing. When you fill in the blanks and you get a document that purports to understand and comply with Maryland law, it may be that. You may get a bare bones legal document that disposes of your assets. However, what you're not getting is the interaction with an elder law attorney that can say to you, wait a minute, you want to leave the house to both of your kids, but you just told me 10 minutes ago that they haven't spoken in 10 years. You realize, of course, that if you leave the house to both of your children, they're going to have to get along long enough to sell the house, or they're going to go to court and fight it out. And we know those things because we've been living and breathing this for decades. LegalZoom doesn't care. So if you put in a dumb idea like that, it's going to produce a bad estate plan. That will is the last document that your kids are going to see about stuff. So when you cut out one kid and you've never had a conversation and they don't know about that, you've created a bad situation after you're gone. We coach you on those things. We explain those things. So as you said, we're in a law firm and we get paid to do the work, but there's value to that. And the cost typically isn't so much. It's LegalZoom for $100 versus PK Law for $1,000, because what you're getting for that difference could drastically change the outcome.
Great. And somebody, because we brought up the 5 wishes, somebody said, what about Voice Your Choice? Reminding folks that we had an educational program on that program. And I just dropped the link to Voice Your Choice in the chat. Now this is, I'm going to try to paraphrase this comment that just came in, but I think it's a really good one. And I'm going to the end where this audience member says, why is it that we sometimes feel we have to do what they say, meaning doctors and lawyers, without learning how to evaluate and question advice, suggestions, and guidance? But in the first part of the question, they were complimenting both of you on explaining some of this confusing stuff, but I totally I totally get where this audience member is going is that, you know, when the person in the white coat walks into your hospital room, it's just you automatically do what they say. And you know, I tend to, for a lot of professions, you know, legal profession, what have you, is there, maybe give us some tips on when we're working with you or your colleagues, is how do you properly sort of walk through challenging the decision making that you're being recommended?
So for instance, I mean, one of the issues that I had was, mom has two kids, and one of the kids um, had Down syndrome. And so therefore, her plan was to leave everything to the other son because that son was going to take care of his brother. I've seen this happen so many times.
Mm,
And I have to do what she wants, but at the same time, that was my opportunity to share my horror stories with her. And, one of them was, you know, the son took all of the money and put his brother in a group home, which is
mhm.
not what mom wanted. So I educate her. I tell her, you can still leave funds to that other son. You just put it in a special needs trust. I give her options to be able to accomplish what she wants and not put the burden on the other brother. And in my world, it's not a burden. It's scary.
Yeah,
Well,
no, so
and Steve, to sort of circle back around on that, we see those experiences for clients who are concerned about when do they know how to trust people. You know what? Check out the resources out there. Your organization provides a tremendous amount of resources,
mhm,
right? The elder law community really hosts a lot of educational forums like this. Our own PK Law website, pop on, scroll through our resources. We have tons of articles, for family members. Let's go all the way back to the beginning. It's about planning ahead. It's about
yeah,
thinking before the crisis hits. So if you can do a little bit of your own education on the side, interview more than one attorney if you want to. You've got to like who they are. You've got to like what they do and what their message is, because my planning is different than Kim's planning is different than the attorney down the street's planning, because it's all governed by us and what we believe.
and
But focus on the resources that organizations like yours provide.
yeah, and you know, I love that question because and actually the way that Kim answered it is probably what the way that you want all practitioners to answer questions. And you guys have talked about this multiple times today. There's the goal of where we want to end, and there's a lot of ways that you can get to that goal. Okay, the way that Kim framed getting to the goal, she spelled out two scenarios. You could do it this way, the way you think you want to do it. Here's an alternative, and this is the benefits of it. You can choose, or let me know what you need to make a decision. I think where you got to start getting nervous, whether it be doctor, lawyer, or anybody, is when somebody says, this is how you have to do it. There's no other alternative. You need to move mom into this particular home or what have you. Understanding that you have choices, and you have to go to that practitioner and say, no, I want to hear what other choices are out there. And if you're not going to let me give me other choices, I'm going to go out and talk to some other people. So that could probably help. And you guys have illustrated this. I knew this was going to happen. We're past one. I'm going to promise these are going to be the last few. I like this one here, though, from Laura DePilio. She's an associate broker and senior real estate specialist, and she wanted to know, what's the best way for me to get in touch with elder law attorneys that are in my region for networking, for helping her client, or what have you? What kind of guidance could you give to providers out there that want to do some outreach and make referral connections with elder law attorneys?
Well,
Kim?
there's NALA. You can always go on the NALA website. And a lot of times people just call me and they tell me, I'm in such and such a state. Can you refer an elder care attorney to me? And I will. I'll vet them. Sometimes I'll even call them to make sure that they're truly elder care attorneys. And there's certain buzzwords that I listen for. And then I
Mhm.
tell them I'm going to refer someone to you.
Okay. great. And then, okay, so the last question, this has got to be it. What you guys were just saying is this where a special needs trust is used with the Down syndrome scenario? Steve had a Zoom meeting where they educated and spoke about a special needs trust and how to use them. So what are the scenarios where you might use a special needs trust?
Well, there's different trust. So for instance, it depends on whose money it is. So for instance, if it's mom or dad, I'm more than likely going to establish the special needs trust under their last will and testament, where if the individual who had special needs actually inherited the money, I'm going to establish a different type of special needs trust for them. It just depends on where the money is coming from and who it belongs to, and whether or not they need benefits. That's going to come into play.
Yep. No, this is great. Wow. Another great hour and 7 minutes. I bet you two are a lot of fun. I think that I really appreciate this discussion and how you really took a complicated subject and made it more understandable. And I want to thank everybody for attending. Everybody had great questions, but Stacy, you win the gold star on this discussion. And we recorded this. We'll give you the follow-up information so you can get in touch with Kim and Cheryl. And I hope you guys have a great remaining week. And thank you for taking a time out of the day.
Thank you, Steve. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a great day.
Okay.